Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Girl Woman with Lara Rathod. And this is part 2 of my conversation with my wonderful goddaughter, Anya Ng-A-Fook, on being a teenager. I don't even know whether I said that in part 1. Maybe I just introduced you. But yes, Anya is a teenager.
No, I think you did.
Did I? Okay.
I believe so.
Well, we're going to kick off part 2 by talking about something that's very close to my heart and something that we spent a lot of time talking about in our pre-call, which is the messages that permeate through culture and society vis-a-vis girls and boys, right? And it's particularly interesting for me to have this conversation with you, and I think it'll be interesting for everybody else as well watching, to hear about how early these messages start and how much you've already kind of picked up even as a teenager. So let's start off, with the general point. What are some of the messages that you have absorbed through culture and society about what it means to be a boy and be a girl?
We'll start off with, guys. I noticed that they have to be strong all the time, whether it be through their emotions or through like physically strong. They have this aspiration to like go to the gym, work out, like so they can have like muscles and show off the fact that look, I go to the gym and I'm strong. Like it's something that girls would look for in a guy when maybe it isn't. Another thing is they can't show any weakness.
Right.
But for instance, crying. I feel
like they're not. Let's talk about crying.
One of my friends actually told me that he hasn't cried in 3 years because he felt like he wasn't allowed to cry.
Wow. And what did you say when he told you that?
When he told me that, I was like, wait, really? I can't believe I never noticed this. I didn't say that, but that was something that went through my head, and I was shocked. I had to compose myself for a minute. I was like, hold on. The next thing I say can be either extremely helpful or extremely detrimental to maybe, his outlook on life, whether the fact that he will cry or whether he won't, if it's good or not. And then I realized, well, one, crying is a natural response from the body, whether it's one to help with your emotions or to not help, express your emotions. It's also a way to like remove bad toxins from the body. So to not cry is actually kind of unhealthy. And so I kind of pointed these out to him. I messaged him back and I was like, well, one, you do realize crying is healthy for the body, and two, crying is a stress reliever also in a way. It helps you get rid of like both the bad toxins in your body as well as bad emotions.
The swirling, the uncomfortable emotions.
Right. And now, I don't know if he did cry after that or if something or whatever happened, but I did let him know that crying is completely normal. Every human should do it. Whether they do or don't is not, unfortunately, up to me. If it was, I'd make crying necessary because it's healthy. So that kind of struck me like as something that shouldn't ever be something that guys feel they shouldn't have to do. Yeah. Because now I'm wondering, with all of my guy friends, do they cry? Is that something that they feel they can't do?
Yeah.
And that kind of always worries me a little bit because I care for my friends. So the fact that they feel like they can't show weakness bothers me a bit.
And before we move on to the messages that you feel apply to girls within society, I do want to point out like a couple of really important things that you did in that conversation. So firstly, you have the relationship with that person that they can be vulnerable with you. So you've created a safe space in that relationship where people can reveal something that, you know, is important to them or that they're struggling with. That's really important. So I think that's wonderful that you have those kinds of relationships. And I hope that relationship is mutual and you also feel like you can reveal things to that person. But the other thing, which you obviously did instinctively, is you took a pause and you realized that what you said next and how you responded to his admission about not crying could have an impact on how he felt about crying, how he felt about himself, you know, how he felt about revealing something, you know. And so you realized that the next things that you were going to say were very impactful and you were intentional about what you told him. And so I think that's really wonderful. And I'm so glad that you know, you responded in that way, because you basically gave him permission and let him know that it's a very, very normal thing. And actually it's very healthy as a human to be able to release emotion. But, you know, I have to tell you, Anya, that even adults, there are so many adults I know that being in tune with their emotions, like knowing what the emotion they're feeling, but also allowing themselves to express their emotion is actually a really hard thing for people. And so it's wonderful for me that as a teenager, you are learning these and you're aware of this and you have this knowledge early. So you're not weighted down by the baggage and by that kind of messaging that I see adults even being weighted down by. So let's talk about what are the messages given to girls.
Messages given to girls. I feel like girls in today's society there is a sense of power that's somewhat there, but isn't at the same time. I feel like girls are also told to be nice. They're allowed to have their own opinions, but not allowed to have it disagree with someone else's or a guy's like opinion. So let's say like in a conversation, in a group conversation, let's say, if you were to be asked your opinion, if a guy were to be asked an opinion, they would be able to state their own opinion and what they feel about it. And that would kind of set the tone for the rest of the people there, whether it be female or male. Now, if another guy were to state a different opinion, this would turn into a kind of debate thing. Okay. But then and this is kind of me assuming a little bit that there will be a debate, or might just turn into an argument, but okay, we'll pretend debate. And okay, if a female or a girl or a woman were to state an opinion that differs from the guy's opinion, it wouldn't be it'd be seen as an opposition or opposing.
Yeah. Both opposition, opposing.
An opposing kind of stance, and her disagreeing with him, and the fact that I don't agree with what you said, so I'm going to fight back in a way. And that isn't something that I think guys like or want, or just the society doesn't agree with.
A girl or a woman using her voice.
Right.
When you told me this in our pre-call, I was really surprised and shocked that this is the messaging that is still passed down. You know, that this is the messaging that you're feeling, because it's not about really what we're saying or what people are saying to you explicitly, We're talking about these subliminal messages that you get from what you watch, from what you read, from what you see out in the world, you know, from what you see on screen, from what you see when you're at school and you perceive. And it's the adjustments of behavior that can then result because of those messages, right? So it's like, speak up, but don't speak up if you're going to disagree. Speak up, but not too loud. And you came up with an amazing analogy that I would love, like it visually represents this. So tell us your analogy of what you think it's like being a girl.
So it's kind of like having a dog and tying a bone to a stick that's wrapped around its neck, and it kind of falls forward, so the bone's like hanging in front. And so that it's like the sense of power, I guess, is the bone, and then the dog is the representation of a woman or a female or a girl. And so the dog is running after the bone because it's there, you see it, it's being shown, but you can never obtain it. It's not something that we will get by ourselves. To be able to get that, you'd have to have someone untie the bone or untie the stick from our neck for us to be able to reach that power.
That's both unbelievable you came up with that analogy, but it's also devastating to me, you know, because the way I perceive generational change is that I can even see changes with people in their 20s, like the way that, you know, girls and women are claiming their voice so much earlier than I did. You know, I only started claiming my voice a few years ago, and they don't see the limits, and they feel like they can be, right? You know, we see amazing, you know, women role models like Simone Biles and you know, other women that are strong, both physically, but also, you know, mentally, and, you know, modeling mental health. And, you know, I think that all of those are giving you guys a vision for what is possible. And what you're saying is, yes, that vision is there, but it feels just a little out of reach in our current society, which is a patriarchal structure. It's a society which elevates men. And what's amazing to me is that even without, you know, we looked up what the word patriarchy means, because, you know, that was something that was a new concept for you. It was actually a new concept for me as well. A few years ago, I had never even heard of the word in my 30s, or maybe I'd heard of it, but I was oblivious as to the effect. And that dog with a bone, where it's just out of reach, really epitomizes what it's like for girls and women within this patriarchal system and within this patriarchal society. And what I think is wonderful is that you recognizing this as a teenager means you're aware of the system that you're in, but you can use this knowledge to find your tribe of people that will help you untie the bone, right? You'll find allies in boys and men, because there are so many amazing boys and men allies, but you'll also find solidarity and community with girls and women, right? Because it's important that we stand together. And thank you for sharing that. And I hope that this gives anybody watching, it gives them an idea that we collectively as a society, we need to do better. We need to do better to allow young girls who are becoming women to really make sure that the systems that we are, that they are going to, you know, come into, operate better than they do at the moment, so that things don't feel so far out of reach. So those are the general messages. We also talked about sort of specific things where girls are scrutinized. So we touched upon clothing, we touched upon hobbies, we touched upon looks. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about clothing. What have you noticed about the differences with clothing?
I've noticed that in schools specifically, there are a lot of clothing restrictions. For instance, something extremely basic, we're not allowed to show our bra straps. And that when I found that out, actually, which was super recent, I was I was kind of shocked because that's an item of clothing that we constantly wear.
Yeah.
And some tops have an off-shoulder thing, and that's like a cute top, but it would show our bra strap. So I'm technically not allowed to wear off-shoulder tops.
Right.
Or I'm not allowed to wear tank tops actually either, even in 98-degree weather.
Yeah.
And so that also shocked me when I figured that out. I'm not allowed to show like my midriff, like no crop tops, things like that. And there aren't really any restrictions for guys. They just can't walk into school butt naked.
Right. So there aren't similar restrictions that boys are not allowed to reveal their arms. Are there any restrictions like that?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's just they have to have a shirt on and they have to have pants on.
Right. But those particular items are not scrutinized, and the rules are not really specific about the kind of shirt and the kind of pants.
Right.
Okay. So what about in sports? Because we talked about sports.
Oh, right. Sports. So I actually used to do gymnastics, and our like clothing, uniform, apparel was leotards, or AKA Leos, because that's easier to say. Those are actually pretty uncomfortable to wear, actually. Okay. Like even when I actually started gymnastics when I was like 1.5 years old. There were these really cute mommy and me classes where like your parent would like help you with everything basically. And we were forced to wear these the leotards, like it would not long sleeve ones with like just kind of straps, like a tank top strap, and it would just barely cover our butts. And sometimes doing certain activities like a cartwheel or a split or a handstand, it would ride up, and so we would constantly have to like pick at it and fix it. And we're not allowed to wear like shorts or anything either to cover like the bottom part of the leotard. And so that was actually extremely uncomfortable for me to wear, like not just because people were looking, but just because of how tight it was, because it was an elastic thing. So it used to leave marks, like the elastic used to leave marks on me, and that kind of hurt a little bit. And I see that there are pretty skimpy outfits that girls are forced to wear for like professional competitions as well. Like actually the Olympics, there's actually just like this entire thing, one for gymnastics and two for like other sports. But there was, I think it was Germany, the German team, women's team, wore long sleeved, both like arms and legs, long sleeved Leos, kind of as a mini protest, I guess, against women apparel and the skimpy outfits we were forced to wear. I think there were a couple other ones, like for volleyball.
Handball, the Norwegian team.
Oh.
Yeah.
Handball. I did not know that existed.
Yeah, so they were their professional, uniform is very, very, very short crop tops and very, very, very short bottoms, which they complained about because they said they were very uncomfortable, and they wanted to wear shorts, but not shorts, baggy shorts down to the knee, the way that the men's handball team were allowed to wear. Theirs was just, I guess halfway down the leg, but just something a little bit more comfortable. And they wore them and they were fined for breaching the uniform code.
That kind of bothers me a little bit, because that's like we're being forced to wear things that we don't want to, and we're being asked to pay money because we don't want to.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because what you just described are two sides of the same coin, right? So at school, you're being told, no, you can't show too much skin, no bare arms, no bra strap showing, etc. And then as an adult in a professional environment, professional sports environment, the outfits are revealing way too much skin in terms of than the people are comfortable with. you know, it doesn't help them in any way, and they actually don't want to wear that. And so it's quite interesting seeing how clothing is scrutinized and how it's kind of policed almost in you know, in both ways, for showing in quotes too much, and in quotes for showing too little. So it's good to be aware now, because when I was younger and at school, I was aware of school restrictions. You know, like in my school, girls had to wear skirts. You know, I think they only changed the school uniform once I was in 17 or 18, that girls could wear trousers. Up to that point, girls had to wear skirts. And the skirts had to be, you know, particular length, and everybody had to wear shirts, etc., with ties and all of that. And I never even questioned it. I never even questioned that there were restrictions. I was like, oh, that's the restriction, okay. But what's interesting about paying attention like you are is that you're starting to question. And I think that's a wonderful thing for any child and teenager, is to look at the world and look at the rules that are set up in the world and really ask yourself, why is this rule there? What's the purpose? And to really dig deep, you know, because the official purpose is that's the school uniform, that's the rule. But then you have to ask why. And then you have to look at, well, does this rule apply equally? And if it doesn't, that raises interesting questions.
Right.
So let's talk hobbies now, because one of the things that you wanted to talk about was the fact that sometimes, you know, hobbies are scrutinized. Girls' hobbies are scrutinized more than boys. So explain a little bit about what you felt.
So I mentioned I played Minecraft, and Minecraft is a game, and so technically I would be considered a gamer.
Okay.
So, and because I'm a girl, the label placed on being a gamer is gamer girl.
Okay.
And for a guy, it's just, oh, I'm a gamer. It's not gamer boy or gamer like man or gamer guy. Yeah. It's, I'm a gamer and that's it. There's no extra labels added. But then if a girl were to do it, it's I'm a gamer girl. And then there are also kind of subtitles that are given, like not titles, but like
labels.
Sub labels, right. It's either your it's either basic gamer girl and you like hardcore gamer,
okay,
or you're a pikmi girl, which is kind of, it's pikmi girl definition is someone who says they're not like other girls, and that's kind of a thing that's been going around for quite a while.
Okay.
And so there are girls that you'll find that are like, oh my gosh, I'm not like other girls, and like I do this and this and this, and supposedly no other girl does that. And so it's either, oh, you're a gamer girl, what type of gamer are you? The hardcore gamer, tomboy type thing, or the pick-me girl. Like there's not just I'm a gamer. Like I can't say that ever.
Oh, I mean, like this is all so fascinating to me. I mean, labels are not new. Labels have been around forever, right? But the messages that are attached to some of these, if you start looking underneath, are not very healthy, because what you will come to find as a girl, young adult, you know, adult in our society is that girls and women are scrutinized. You've obviously felt it already, but like are scrutinized much more than boys and men in everything. And what that can make, what that can create then is that people feel the need to break out of it, to not be like everybody else. They want to distinguish themselves, like as you described with the pick-me girl. And it's actually divisive. The messaging underneath is, I'm not like the other girls, which presupposes that all girls are the same and all girls have, you know, particular qualities. Whereas actually we need to be looking at people as individuals and as human beings. And we need to, you know, be mindful of how we start judging each other in you know, both how as girls and women, we judge each other, but also in society, like judging each other as individuals. Tell us some other differences, in not just with hobbies, like differences that you've noticed about girls and boys.
Another like set of differences that I also noticed was in like what we just like to talk about in general, like books we read. Actually, because reading is something that I like absolutely love to do, I kind of noticed this a bit more. There's sections in a public library. There's like obviously the adult section, and then there's the like young adult section, and then there's the kids section. But inside the kids section, you've got a themed like area, and it's not like ocean themed or like desert or jungle type theme thing. It's gender themed.
Okay.
It's not very here's the boy side and here's the girl side. It's here's the spaceships and rockets and action figures side, and then here's the Disney princesses and the love stories side. Okay. And the make-believe magical fantasy side. And the colors that are used there, blue and pink, like the gender colors that we have as a society come to accept as pink for girl and blue for boy.
Right.
And so the blue side would be the action figure, like space themes, and the pink side would be the Disney princesses or love side. And if I were to walk into the side for guys, or supposedly for guys, it would be the lady at the desk thing. I forgot librarian. Such a simple word. I completely forgot it.
Happens to me all the time.
The librarian would be like, what type of books are you looking for? We have the Disney princess section, or like the princess section or the love section over there if you would like. And I'm sitting here in a section that I know I'm in. I'm not lost, but I'm being asked if this is what I'm actually looking for.
So you're being subtly redirected because the assumption is because you're a girl, you'd only be interested in this type of genre.
Yes.
Wow, that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I actually kind of just remembered that, so.
Yeah. And so we've talked about girls' clothing being scrutinized. And actually one point I wanted to make when we were talking about clothing, which I kind of forgot to make, but I think it's important, is for all the scrutiny that there is about girls' clothing, and I understand that the reasoning is to try and deter people from sort of looking and making, one uncomfortable. Yeah, comments and, discomfort.
Catcalling.
Yes, catcalling, that kind of thing. The one message that I really want you to remember is that regardless of what you wear, whether you're wearing a bikini on a beach or a tank top or leggings or a sweater or anything like that, like regardless of what you wear, nobody has the right to make an assumption about who you are, and nobody has the right to touch your body without consent. Your clothing in no way is an invitation for either of those two things to happen. And I really want you to remember that as you move through your life, because the messaging from magazines and from media and the messaging that you no doubt will experience in the real world may tell you otherwise. And that's wrong. That messaging is wrong. Okay?
Yes. I've noticed that in school, actually, this is something that's kind of now being a little bit more like prominent, because I like just got into high school and guys have come to that age, I guess you could say. This is kind of just like a basic thing that I've seen. If a guy were to sleep with a girl, he's seen as like amazing, or like, oh my god, you've done it, that's amazing. but the girl is like, oh, you're easy, you're loose because you slept with him.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a double standard. One, two, that's like, that can't happen. Like, if a guy were to sleep with someone or sleep around, right, he would have to sleep with girls, right? Or, well, he doesn't have to, but
No. But in that example that you gave,
in the example I gave, he would have to sleep around with girls.
right.
And the girls, they're seen as someone that, like, they're easy, and then the rest of the guys will, like, come after her or something.
Yeah.
Once the other guy shares his, like, oh my god, I did it with her. And I realized how much of a double standard that was actually when I was reading a book, because one of the books, it's actually a movie. The third movie finally came out on Netflix that I've been waiting for. It was To All the Boys I've Loved Before. It's a trilogy.
Oh, okay. I've heard of it, but I haven't watched anything.
Yeah, the books and the movies are exactly the same. So unlike Harry Potter, nothing was left out.
Oh, nice.
So you could watch the movie and get the same thing from the book.
Okay.
So the girl, they were like in a hot tub and they were kissing. Nothing happened, just kissing. But she was made fun of when she got back to school. And the dude was like seen as some god. And I like, that kind of just fully clicked in my brain after I watched that. And I was like, oh my God, that's actually something that happens in real life too. And it's
so the same scenario,
yeah,
is perceived completely differently, and the same two people, the two people in that scenario, are also perceived completely differently when it's the same exact situation. I wish I could tell you that that's new, but that is not new. That's been around in my generation. So we have 31 years between us. And I know that it wasn't new for my generation either, which means that it's been around for a really long time, that double standard, that way of seeing, that way of viewing boys and men versus girls and women. And it's definitely a double standard that I believe should not exist. I could say very many things about it, but we're going to keep this child friendly, so I won't. But yes, I'm really glad you highlighted that. And I'm also really glad that you acknowledge that that's not okay. And that's why actually it's so good when you have reference points from wherever, either from real life or from books or movies, because sometimes when we see things happening to other people, because of our ability to step within the story, step inside the story and identify with characters and have empathy, it can make us realize things and experience things that we haven't actually experienced yet, but we know what it would feel like. And we can see when, maybe from that observer position, we can see when something is so clearly unfair. Whereas when you're in the middle of it, sometimes it's difficult, to really understand that it's not you, but it's something that's happening to you. So I'm really glad that you've learned that lesson, that that's not okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad to have learned that from a book instead of something that happens in real life, because that can have like big impacts on people, and I'm glad that was something I've learned from a book versus real life.
And I want you to share the song, because I think there's so many wonderful, empowering messages.
I wrote it on an index card because I memorize lyrics is good.
So firstly, tell us whose song it is and how you found it, and then
screen time. I spend majority of my screen time on TikTok. So I came across this song, I think it was like maybe around a month ago. Actually made it onto the radio, which I was actually quite happy about.
Okay.
Because we haven't heard like songs like this on the radio as much. So I was like, oh my God, the song made it on the radio. That's super cool. The song is by Bella Porch. She's one of the like TikTok stars. The song is called Build a Bitch.
Okay.
Now there is on the radio the clean version, right? So but a couple of like lyric sets or verses, go along the lines of this. This ain't build a bitch. You don't get to pick or choose. Different butt or bigger boobs if my eyes are brown or blue. And that kind of, this is a song, the way she wrote this song is kind of as a message to guys saying, hey, look, we come as we are. You don't get to like choose. You don't get to have, oh my God, well, I don't like you because of this, and go and pick someone that has that trait. And that kind of stuck out to me. Another verse was, need someone who falls apart so he can play Prince Charming. If that's the kind of girl he wants, then he forgot. Because another thing I've noticed in society today is like guys always kind of come to the rescue. When you think of a firefighter, you think of a guy. When you think of a police, you think of a guy. And so instead of a police or a firefighter, it's not both genders. It's, oh my God, a guy's coming to save me. So I noticed that. And then the kind of girl he wants, then he forgot. And then it goes back into the chorus, this ain't build a bitch.
So it's basically these lyrics are kind of, I guess, pushing back at the messaging that pervades through society, that girls are powerless and weak, etc., and that we have to be overly concerned with every aspect of our appearance. So this song kind of is I guess your version of the Spice Girls, like girl power and being able to be comfortable in who you are and how you look and all that you can be. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, another celebrity that had a lot of controversy around her was Billie Eilish. She actually just came out with a new album, which I absolutely love. She had a lot of hate comments thrown at her from like different sides of the clothes she wore. Like she wore a tank top, and she was like, there were catcalls thrown at her. There were like, and it made her really uncomfortable. So she started to wear extremely baggy clothes, like to the like award ceremony that just happened.
Okay.
She's been wearing these like humongous baggy like jeweled outfits and stuff that would never show like her body. And just recently she came out like from that funk, I guess you could call it, and started wearing like clothes that like
were more form-fitting,
and she kind of like decided that, you know what, screw it. There are always going to be hate comments, because even when she wore baggy clothes, there were hate comments.
Yeah.
And so she decided, I guess, because of there will always be there, I'm just going to do what I want. And so she like started wearing more form-fitting clothes, and it actually looks really, really good. And so I like that, how she decided, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do what I want, and no one can tell me no.
I mean, that's also a really important lesson to learn by like watching somebody else, right? Because what it teaches you is that, as you pointed out, you're going to get comments and criticism regardless of what you do. And that's because you can't please everybody. There is like, you're just never going to be able to in your life do things where every single person is going to be happy. But then the other thing, that's impossible, right? And the other thing is that once you realize that, then you have to ask yourself a question, which is, if I know that I'm going to get criticism for no matter what I do, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to do something that at the very least makes me happy and that I believe in, that I choose, rather than trying to look outside and please other people? These are two really important lessons. And I'm glad that you're sort of starting to see this and understand that these are the choices that you will be faced with in your own life too. And when you are faced with those, it's actually really important to follow your own intuition and your inner voice, which is something that I'm super interested in, because it's something that I've been cultivating, well, all my life, but become very, very aware of now. Like, my decisions are very much driven by my intuition. And so, Anya, like, as a teenager, are you aware of your intuition? And if so, can you maybe give us an example of a time that you kind of listened to it?
Yeah. So I am aware of my intuition. Actually, a lot more than I used to be. Like, I always used to have these like little like feelings like you probably shouldn't do that, but I didn't notice it as much. Looking back, obviously, I realized that was my intuition talking to me and like whacking me upside the head. Hello, dumb, you can't do this. Because after I did that, I got into trouble or something bad happened, and I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, an example would actually be something that happened like maybe like a couple years ago at school. I was going to lunch or on my path to go to the cafeteria, and something told me not to go. I don't know why, never figured out why it told me that until everyone got detention for a food fight that happened. Even including the people that did not participate. So I actually I decided, you know what? Something's telling me not to go to the cafeteria. I'm not going to go. I'm going to go to the teacher, like another teacher's office and hang out there for like the lunch period and then go back to my class when the bell rings. And so I did. And then after that, I was walking back to class and noticed, one, no one was in the halls after the bell rang because everyone was getting detention. And so I walked back to class so confused, thinking, did I miss the bell? Was that not the right bell I was supposed to follow? And then no, I walked into class and my teacher said, where is everyone? And I'm like, I don't know. I was at one of my other teachers' thing. I didn't go to the cafeteria. And then everyone all came out like 15 minutes later back to class. And they were all so depressed because they all had detention. And then I was like, well, hey, I don't have detention because I have my intuition. So
I mean, that's a really funny example that you've given. But it highlights an important point that when we, like, what does your intuition feel like? What did it feel like? How did you kind of know to pay attention to it?
It felt like what I was doing was wrong.
Okay, so you were like being given a sort of a sign, no, don't do that.
So the way my intuition speaks to me is if I'm doing something and it doesn't feel right, like it doesn't sit well with me or it doesn't like resonate, and it's not like something that I'm like, yes, or it's like, I'm like, yes. It's if I feel like that, if yes, I won't do it, or I'll think about it more. And then there's some times where I'll just like feel like 100% no to this. Like there is no if yes. It's just, do I want this pen? No. And then so I'll just say no, I don't want the pen.
And on the flip side of the definite no, do you also have your intuition tell you what's a definite yes?
Yeah, sometimes. There are times when I'm like, well, do I want this? Is this something that I should do? And I think about like, will this be beneficial to me? Will this do this? Like, and then I picture myself actually doing that activity. And if that resonates with me and if that like feels good and okay, then I'll do it. And if it doesn't resonate, then I won't, because to me, that's my intuition telling me not to.
Yeah, you're focusing on the most important word when we talk about intuition in a voice, which is feel, which is so hard to explain to people, right? It's so hard because it's like you feel it. It's like it's invisible, but you feel it. And so this is so exciting for me that
like a better example would be like right now, like when you asked me if I wanted to do this, I just said yes because I wanted to.
yeah.
But doing this now, it's like it feels good, and I know I should be doing this because this is something that, one, is like beneficial to everyone, and two, like it makes me happy and it resonates with me in it. So yeah, that's another example of my intuition telling me to do something.
I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled that that's how it felt like for you, because I had no idea. I was gonna, when I asked you, I was very careful to like say to you, like, you can think about it, you can take some time, you don't need to answer. And before I even finished that sentence, you were like, yes, I really want to do this. And so look, we get to do this together. Thank you, darling, for like talking about your intuition like that. I think it's really, really important, and I think it's going to help people to maybe tap into. Now hearing you talk about it, they'll realize that they have that little voice, they have that strong feeling, either strong feeling yes or strong feeling no, or that maybe feeling which makes them take a pause to figure out what it is they want. And I think that that can help so many people, because the sooner that you, why intuition is important is because, as you said earlier, right, there's so many messages, there's so much noise that's like around in culture and society about what girls should be like, what women should be like, what you should be like, what I should be like. There's so much noise, and we can't live our lives by listening to all of that noise. Otherwise, we will never end up doing what we need to do, but also we'll never end up being who we need to be. And so your intuition is a very key component in developing a relationship with yourself, a connection to yourself, your own desires, your own needs, your own values. That's why your intuition is so important. And so a leaping off point from relationships, the relationship with ourselves is relationships in general. And I had asked you the question about what qualities do you think are important for relationships? And by relationships, I mean all kinds of relationships, right? I mean friendships and romantic relationships, because at the end of the day, as my guest in episode 5, Marcella said, she said the most important foundation of any romantic relationship is the friendship.
Right.
So
yeah, I completely agree with that statement.
Yeah. So tell us some qualities that you think are really important for relationships.
So I feel like for me, there are 3 like key things. The first one, and I feel like one of the most important things, is honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Like just being honest. Like if you were to say, oh, you want to go get boba tea, for instance, like what if that person doesn't want boba tea? They should have the right to say, no, I don't like boba tea. Then we'll have to come up with something else, mm-hmm. like tea or coffee or like water, like slushies or something.
Yeah.
And so like the ability to be honest with someone.
Okay.
Another thing is kindness. Like, let's continue with this boba tea thing. If I say, would you like to go get boba tea with me? And you say, no, I hate boba tea. That kind of puts me down a little bit because I like boba tea. So you would be able, a kinder way to say this would be, my preference, I do not prefer boba tea. Do you mind if we were to get something else? So that would be a kind way to say, to be honest with someone. Mm-hmm. And so that's another thing I think is key. And the last thing I think is the most important is to be yourself. Like the ability to just be who you are and not have to mute certain aspects of yourself to fit the fact that it doesn't, or that person doesn't like that aspect of you.
Yeah, these are amazing qualities. They're so necessary. I agree with all of them. And it happens, I think that one of the things that we learn as we become older is that there is a difference sometimes between knowing something, knowing these qualities, and then actually putting them into practice and doing them, right? And so honesty and kindness are easier, but like the ability to be who you are, that can be tricky because you're evolving, right? So you kind of want the ability to be able to be who you are at this moment in time, but also to grow and to have the freedom and the space to grow and evolve into as you move through life, right? Life is growth. But so often we can see that when we're in relationships and we kind of want to make the other person happy, we can kind of sometimes fall into the trap of, let's go with the boba tea example. I was going to say a sporty girl or whatever, but like let's stick with boba tea. So maybe like boba tea is really important to that person, and you want to be somebody that person likes, and so you think, I don't like boba tea, but okay, I'll drink boba tea. And that can be a good thing if it exposes you to trying something new, but it can be a not so good thing if you're really doing something that you don't really like, or if you're kind of doing something that actually doesn't make you feel good, right? So that ability to be who you are, it's important to pay attention because you know it, but it's important to also be able to check yourself and your behavior when you're in a friendship or a relationship with somebody.
Right. Actually, these like key 3 things I've only now noticed because I've had some of my friends for now going on 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
And obviously 10 years is a really long time to have a friend.
Yeah.
So basically I've known them for majority of my life, and people change. I change. I used to be extremely shy. And when I actually made these friends, I was the shyest person they knew. And then now to them, I'm one of the more outgoing people in our friend group. And so that change was able to happen because 1, we're honest with each other. 2, yes, there are times where we can like throw insults at each other because it's hilarious, but we're kind to each other. And when we're telling someone, no, we don't like something, or no, we don't want to do this, it's not, no, I don't want to because it's not something I like. It's, I don't want to do this at the moment. Do you mind if we do something else? And then to be ourselves, because I think we became friends at such a young age. Sorry, those words blended together. I feel like there weren't as many subconscious thoughts of, oh, well, this person doesn't like this. It's either because we weren't fed these thoughts from society yet. This was like our first year in a public school. So these friends we made were based off of who we were at that time. And
very so pure and untouched. And
yeah, it was an untouched friendship. And I like to think that it's been the same, and how we've evolved from little itty bitty 5-year-olds to 15-year-olds. And we're still very honest with each other. I mean, there are some things that we just kind of leave out because that's a little too personal, even though we have known each other for 10 years. That's just something we would like to keep to ourselves, and we have the right to do that. But yeah, we're honest with each other about like people we meet, people we're friends with, who we like and don't like. Like, actually, one of my friends brought a new friend into the friend group. And a lot of us didn't like that person because they were very fake. And I don't think that the friend that brought them in realized that. And so we kind of told them that, hey, look, I don't think you realize this, but this person is extremely fake. And because I knew that person from a different friend group, and they were acting completely different, I realized right away that they're not who they say they are.
I mean, that's a really important lesson, the not being who you say you are, because what you're talking about is integrity, right? And integrity, the real meaning of integrity is not the meaning that everyone thinks, which is doing the right thing. That's not integrity.
No, it's being true to yourself.
Yes, it's being integrated, where your thoughts, your words, and your actions are
Or all
aligned, are all the same. Yeah. So it's wonderful that you have the space to grow, but also the space to be able to share things in a kind way with each other. So I know that you have views also about children and parenting. And so I guess, like, for right now, like, have you even thought about whether having kids is something that you kind of want in your future, or where are you at with that?
I'm undecided on this topic. I mean, I think the thought is nice of having a child, but I feel like that's not something that I've really thought about yet.
Okay.
But I do have like some kind of, not ideals, but like thoughts on like parenting, I guess.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, let's hear that. Let's hear them.
Well, one, the first most basic thing is I feel like you should be able to take care of yourself before
Okay.
you like have any thought of taking care of someone else. And so like the most basic needs, like, is your mental health, like, are you mentally prepared for it? Are you, even without being mentally prepared for having a child or bringing someone in, are you okay?
Okay.
Like things like that. Another thing is, I guess it's kind of like a saying in a way, but it goes along the lines of the child. When you have a child, you wanted to have the child. The child did not ask to be brought into this world. So I feel like anything that were to happen because of the child, or the child has problems, I feel like the parents shouldn't get frustrated.
Okay.
Or like have any like not hostile, but like have any frustrated or angry like reactions to it, because it's like, you, in a way, you kind of signed up for it. Like,
yeah.
And so I feel like another thing is emotions, like the children's emotions. I feel like children are taught to be like calm and like muted, I guess, like their emotional outbursts, I guess. And not in a bad way either. I mean, like outbursts of excitement or outbursts of like joy or even sadness and anger. I feel like kids shouldn't have to be able to mute those, because as an adult, we're also taught to kind of keep to yourself a little bit. Like, you're allowed to have emotions, you're allowed to show them, but don't make such a big deal out of it. And so I feel like if you're to do that as an adult, you should be able to show your emotions as a kid.
Yeah.
So I feel like those are a couple of things that are like kind of key to me, at least.
Well, I don't think they're just key to you. I mean, they are key. You kind of really nailed some of the really essential things about parenting. And what you'll see when you watch other episodes, I'm thinking of particularly episode 2 and 3 that I've just released. Those people, Daphne and Ujvala, talk about these very things. And they talk about, their children's emotions and helping nurture and grow their children's emotions. And so you're right. Because one of the things that you'd said to me in the prequel also was that if we're constantly telling children to don't cry too much or stop crying, or, to mute themselves, to mute their emotions, then we're suppressing them at a very young age. And so that either will, result in them kind of all coming out as a teenager in one extreme, right? Or in another extreme, they'll keep it suppressed and they'll keep suppressing their emotions all the way through to adulthood and within adulthood, because they've never been taught. So you've really nailed some very, very important points about parenting. And thank you, because hearing it from the mouth of a child, young adult, teenager, is really important. So now we're coming to the end, Anya, and there are only a couple of questions left. So one of them is, who are some of your role models and why?
So when I was originally asked this question, I didn't really have any, and I never really gave any thought to it, because these types of questions in school were kind of always like optional. You didn't have to answer these when we were like doing icebreaker questions. But when I sat down to think of it and think of who I saw as my role model, I saw you. Because when I think of like someone I aspire to be or want to be, I think of someone that is flexible, someone that even though they've been doing something for so long, like you were able to change your profession when you realized that that wasn't something that you wanted to do anymore, or something that didn't resonate with you. And one day, if I decide to become a psychologist and I realize that that's not something I want to do anymore, I want to be able to have enough courage to be able to be like, I don't want to do this, put my foot down and back away and choose something else to do. So yeah, so that's
I told you I would cry. I cried really hard, but I can't help it. That means everything to me. You know it does. I've told you that separately. That means everything to me. So thank you for that beautiful gift. I will cherish it. And I'm very mindful of my actions, and I'm very mindful of what I do. And every video I've ever made has been with you and Elsa in mind. You know, like I check myself. I think, you know, is this something that I would want them to hear? Is this something I would want them to understand? You know, is this a lesson that I think is really important for them? So all of my creative output has been, you know, for both of you, because you both are like my own. And so I love you like my own. So the last question is, and you kind of answered it a little bit, but like, why is using your voice so important to you? And why did you want to be part of the series?
So to me, finding my voice is to be able to put out in the world something that I'm proud of and something that I stand for and something that I agree with. Now, I agree that my views maybe one day might change for something, and then I'll be able to have find my voice again and say, well, yes, I agree, I said this before. And at that time, when I put this out there, or when I said this, I full-heartedly believe that with my entire being. But now looking back, maybe something changed, or something gave me a better outlook. And so it developed further. And so I want to put that out there again. So finding my voice to me is being able to speak up and say things that are on my mind, say things that can be used for like the good of the world. And why I found it important to be on the series was because I want to be able to have other people see this and see, like, from a teenager what my outlook on life is and how I see the world and what's happening to me. And so if some people decide that they want to change the world and actually change it, they'll be able to look up things, and maybe they'll come across this video one day and they'll use this as something. So that's why I found it important. That, and because, well, I found it important to be able to do things with people. And so, because maybe one day I might not be able to travel, or like one day, I don't know, maybe like I'm busy with schoolwork, because that actually happened. I'd like to be able to do as many things as I can with the people that I love and care about. So that's another thing. So
those are such gorgeous reasons. And yeah, that's like, you've nailed why I want to put this out into the world, because what I know from having experienced it myself is how impactful it can be when you hear people talking about things that you care about, or you learn something new that you didn't realize, and it makes you think and sort of go about your life or think about yourself in a different way. And so knowing that I've experienced that by listening to other people, my hope is that other people will stumble upon this at the right time, that it finds them and it will be impactful to them. And of course, being able to co-create and be part of this with you is the most wonderful gift. And you have a standing invitation. You don't need an invitation, but I'm giving you one. You have a standing invitation to come back and talk about things at any time. You know, maybe we do it as a yearly thing, and so you can kind of see your own progression and your own, you know, vision and perspective on life, and you see how it's changed. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, Anya. This was a real joy doing this with you. Thank you so much for this and for everything that you have given me in the 15 and a bit years. All the joy. So thank you. That means a lot. And for everybody else, that brings us to the end of part 2 with Anya and Ng-A-Fook on being a teenager. Please do check out the other episodes on the YouTube channel as well, and subscribe to be notified when new episodes are released. So take care, everyone, and I'll see you in the next episode.